Have you ever wished for a second chance at a garden harvest? One that skips the bugs, loves the cooler weather, and lets you enjoy fresh vegetables long after summer ends. Then you're going to love fall gardening. But here's the twist. Your fall garden doesn't get planted in the fall. So when do you plant it? We'll cover that, plus the best vegetables to grow in a fall garden in today's episode. Let's dig in. Welcome back to Homegrown, your backyard garden podcast. I'm Kathy Rogers from OakHillHomestead.com, and today we're talking about one of the most misunderstood gardening seasons, fall gardening. Now, I know what you're thinking. Fall gardening? It's not fall yet, and it's 104 degrees outside. I'm not even going out there unless it's to rescue a watermelon. But that's the whole point of today's episode, timing. See, the term fall garden is actually kind of misleading. A fall garden doesn't get planted in the fall. Nope. It needs to be planted in the summer. In the heat, in the humidity, when the mosquitoes are out in full force, because those plants need time to grow before your first frost hits. And I know that might not sound appealing right now, when it's hotter than the inside of a pizza oven out there, but hear me out. Fall gardening is absolutely worth it, and I'll walk you through exactly what to plant, when to plant it, and how to help your seedlings survive the summer heat. First, the why. Why go through the trouble of planting when it's sweltering outside? Well, fall gardening has a few big advantages. A lot of the pests that drive us crazy in the spring and summer, like cabbage loopers, are finished with their life cycles by late summer. So your cabbage and broccoli have a much better chance of thriving. Plus, cool weather crops like spinach, lettuce, and carrots actually prefer the shorter, cooler days of fall. They grow sweeter and more tender when they're not battling the heat. So, even though you're planting in the heat, your harvest will happen in the cool, and that makes all the difference. So how do you figure out the right time to plant? Well, you'll need to know two things. First, your average first frost date, and second, the days to maturity for each vegetable you want to grow. Before you can plan what to plant, or when, you'll need to know your average first frost date. That's the date in the fall when your area usually gets its first light frost. Now I say average because it's just that, an average. It's based on many years of weather data, and while it's a helpful guide, it's certainly not set in stone. Some years you'll get lucky with a late frost. Other years you might not be so lucky. And this is why I give myself a bit of a buffer when I'm figuring out my planting dates. You can find your average first frost date by entering your zip code into a tool like the one at Dave's Garden or at Old Farmer's Almanac. I'll drop the link in the show notes. Just keep in mind that elevation, microclimates, and other local factories can shift that date a little bit earlier or later. For example, here in our town in Zone 7B, our average first frost is around October 28th. But our family actually lives at a slightly higher elevation than town, and that usually affects our frost dates by as much as a week in some years. But this average date will give you a place to start, and that's exactly what you need right now, a place to start. Once you have that date, you can start counting backwards to figure out when to plant each crop. And that's when we use the second part of the equation, the number of days to maturity for each vegetable you want to plant. Let's take radishes as an example. The early scarlet globe variety of radish matures in just 22 days. If my average first frost is October 28th, I'll count backwards 22 days. And then I subtract another week just to give myself a little buffer. All my radishes, and any other plants too, don't ripen on the same day, whether it's spring or fall. There are always a few little ones that need a bit more time, and this buffer helps. Also, it helps hedge my bets against an early frost, giving me a few extra days. So that puts me at September 31st as the last possible day to plant radishes. That's the formula. Your first frost date minus the days to maturity minus another 7 to 10 days as a buffer, and that equals your last planting date, or your deadline date, as I call it. And if you want to succession plant, say, radishes, just subtract another 7 days and plan to plant a few more. Keep doing that as many times as you want to plant radishes. Instead of planting a bunch of radish seeds all at once, you could plant a smaller number 4 times, for instance. You'll get a nice extended harvest this way, instead of everything being ready all at once. It might seem confusing at first, since we're working backwards. First, you figure out the last date that you can plant something, so that it has enough time to mature before the winter weather sets in. You can plant earlier than that. That's just the last date you can plant, your deadline date. If you want to plant lettuce or radishes or something in succession, smaller amounts over a few weeks, you count backwards again to find the next date to plant your seeds. It helps my brain to write it down on paper or a calendar. Now let's talk about what you can actually grow in a fall garden. These cool season, quick maturing crops are perfect for fall planting. Leafy greens like lettuce, spinach, and kale. Brassicas, including cabbage, broccoli, and pak choi. Root crops such as carrots, radishes, and beets. And peas are another favorite fall crop, especially snap peas or snow peas. Be sure to choose early maturing varieties. Check the seed packet for days to maturity. And if the word early is in the name, that's usually a good sign too. If you'd like a little help getting started, I've added a list of my favorite fall garden seeds, the exact varieties I use, to the companion article on my website. It even includes links if you want to give them a try yourself. Just head to the show notes or visit oakhillhomestead.com to check it out. Search for Fall Garden. Now, let's talk strategy, because planting in summer heat is no joke. You will want to protect those little seedlings from both heat and pests. Even though many harmful insects have finished their life cycles by now, I usually still have grasshoppers. If you are worried about garden pests, you can cover your seedlings with row covers to protect them. If you're growing peas or another flowering crop, you'll need to remove the covers before the plants begin to blossom, so that pollinators can get to the flowers. Here's how to protect your plants from the heat and the sun. First, use shade to your advantage. I like to plant tender greens like lettuce in the shadow of taller plants or on the shady side of a fence or shed. You can also use shade cloth to block the worst of the afternoon sun. Second, water deeply and regularly. The top layer of soil dries out fast in hot weather. Water in the early morning so the roots get what they need without evaporating instantly. And third, start seeds indoors when you can. Lettuce, spinach, and the brassicas, many of these can be started inside where it's cooler. Then, transplant them into the garden once they're a few inches tall. Don't forget to harden them off first. That said, root crops like carrots and beets don't like being transplanted. Their roots will get all twisted and funky, so direct seed those directly in the soil. Radishes too. They grow so fast that it's not necessary to start them indoors. And just a few quick tips for transplanting some common fall plants. You can transplant lettuce when the plants are about 2 to 3 inches tall. Spinach too. Cabbage plants can be transplanted at about 3 inches tall. Remember to water your seedlings and transplants regularly, every day when they are new and vulnerable. Watering in the morning before the sun hits the plants is a good time. Keep the leaves as dry as possible when you're watering. And if necessary, water them again in the early evening, especially during the first week or two, depending on how hot and windy your weather is. Wind dries out the soil and your plants, so pay attention to that. If you haven't yet submitted your question for our upcoming Q&A episode, don't forget to do that. I'd love to answer your questions, big or small, beginner or beyond. Just go to the form on my website and add your question. I'll drop the link in the show notes, or you can go to oakhillhomestead.com and look for the link near the top. Now, before I wrap up, don't forget about garlic. Garlic gets planted in the fall too, usually around your first frost. But it doesn't count as a fall crop because it grows over the winter and is harvested the next summer. Still, fall is when you need to get it in the ground. If you're new to growing garlic, I've got an article on how to plant it and grow it I'll link to that in the show notes for you too. To sum up, fall gardens are planted in the summer. They're full of cool weather crops that love the shorter days of fall, and with a little protection and planning, you can enjoy fresh vegetables well into the chilly days of autumn. If you're wondering which seeds I like best for fall planting, I've linked to all my favorite varieties on my website. You'll find that and more in the show notes, or go to oakhillhomestead.com and search for Fall Garden. If you've never tried planting a fall garden before, I hope you'll give it a try this year. Yes, it's hot when you plant it. Yes, it's extra effort. But once the cool weather hits and you're harvesting tender greens, fresh peas, and sweet carrots while your neighbors are pulling up dead tomato vines, you'll be so glad you did. Thanks for hanging out in the garden with me today. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to subscribe and leave a rating or a review wherever you listen. I'll see you here next time on Homegrown, your Backyard Garden podcast.